You're right there, on the edge of the promotion, the creative breakthrough, the moment you've been working toward for months, maybe even years. Everything is perfectly lined up for your success. The path is clear, and the finish line is in sight. So why do you suddenly feel a paralyzing, gut-wrenching anxiety? Why are you suddenly doom-scrolling social media, picking a fight with your partner, or doing literally anything else to avoid taking that final, crucial step? This probably isn't a fear of failure. You've failed before. You know what that feels like. This is something else, something deeper. And it might just be the real reason you're secretly and systematically sabotaging your own happiness. This phenomenon is often called the fear of success. It's a complex, hidden barrier that stops you right when you're about to get what you want most. It's the invisible force that makes you slam on the brakes when you should be hitting the gas. On the surface, it makes zero sense. I mean, why would anyone be afraid of achieving their goals? But this fear isn't logical. It's primal. It's a defense mechanism your mind has built, brick by painful brick, over your lifetime. Think of this fear not as an enemy, but as a deeply confused and overprotective friend. For our purposes, let's use a metaphor and call it your inner guardian. This isn't a clinical term, by the way, just a way to picture this part of your brain. This guardian's main job is to keep you safe. And to your inner guardian, safe means familiar. Success, by its very nature, it's unfamiliar. It's uncharted territory. It means change, growth, and, well, stepping into a new version of yourself. To your inner guardian, that new territory is full of potential dangers. What if you can't handle the new responsibilities? What if people's expectations become impossibly high? What if the people you love resent you? And what if you change into someone you don't recognize? These are the questions your inner guardian whispers in moments of quiet doubt. It's not trying to hurt you. It genuinely thinks it's preventing you from getting hurt. The result? It's a devastating pattern of self-sabotage. Procrastination becomes a tool to avoid the finish line. You set impossibly low goals to ensure you're never truly challenged. You might even quit right at the moment of victory, finding a sudden reason why this isn't what you wanted after all. These aren't signs of weakness. No, they're the fingerprints of your inner guardian, working tirelessly to keep you in your comfort zone. A prison where you're both the inmate and the warden. Understanding this, that's the first step, because you can't work with a part of yourself you don't understand. Right? To really get a handle on this fear, we need to understand the specific psychological triggers that give your inner guardian its power. These are the deep-seated beliefs that fuel your fear of what happens when you actually win. The first and most common reason is imposter syndrome. This is that nagging feeling that you're a fraud, that your accomplishments are just a result of luck or timing, and that any minute now, you're going to be found out. It's the voice that whispers, "You don't deserve this." Even when there's overwhelming evidence of your competence, like degrees, promotions, and praise, the person with imposter syndrome lives with a constant dread of exposure. They believe they aren't as smart or capable as others think. This creates a huge internal conflict. The world sees a success story, but you feel like an actor who forgot their lines. Think of a brilliant developer who lands a major role at a top tech company. Externally, she's a success. Internally, she's terrified. She thinks she only got the job because of a fluke in the interview. Every compliment from her manager feels like a lie she has to uphold. She works 16-hour days, not from passion, but from a desperate need to overprepare, to build a fortress of work around her. So no one sees the incompetence she sure is there. She avoids speaking up in meetings, fearing any question will reveal her ignorance. Leadership opportunities get turned down because more visibility means a higher chance of being exposed. This isn't just a lack of confidence. It's a disconnect between your achievements and your self-perception. You don't internalize your wins. When you succeed, you say it was luck. When you fail, you see it as proof of your inadequacy. This makes success feel less like a victory and more like a ticking time bomb. The higher you climb, the more people are watching, and the more terrifying the inevitable exposure feels. So, your inner guardian steps in, telling you to play small and stay out of the spotlight. It's safer to never reach the summit than to risk the catastrophic fall. It sure is coming. The second hidden reason is perfectionism. Now let's be clear here. Perfectionism isn't the same as having high standards. Healthy striving is about growth, and it leaves room for mistakes. The kind of perfectionism we're talking about, it's often driven by fear. It's an all-or-nothing mindset that believes, if you can just be perfect, you can avoid the pain of judgment and shame. For the perfectionist, there's no good enough. There's only flawless and failure. And this creates an impossibly high bar. You see, success becomes terrifying because it sets a new, even higher standard. A standard you feel pressured to maintain. Think of an artist. She creates a masterpiece, right? She might then feel immense anxiety about her next piece, fearing it won't live up to the last one. This fear, it often leads to a cruel form of self-sabotage, procrastination. It seems backward, right? Why would a perfectionist put things off? Because if you never start, well, you can never fall short. And if you wait until the last minute, you've got a built-in excuse for why the result isn't perfect. You know that old line, if only I'd had more time, it would have been flawless. This protects the illusion of your own potential. Perfectionism is a cage built from shoulds. I should be able to do this effortlessly. I should never make a mistake. The inner critic is brutal. Every minor flaw gets magnified into a catastrophe, seen as proof that you're not good enough. This is why finishing a project can feel terrifying. Finishing means it can be judged, and if it's judged as anything less than perfect, the perfectionist's sense of self is threatened. So, projects stay 90% done. The novel stays in the drawer. Your inner guardian convinces you it's better to be a person of unrealized potential than to be a person who tried and produced something that was merely human, and therefore imperfect. The third hidden reason is a deep fear of more responsibility. On the surface, you want the promotion or the bigger business, but your subconscious is running a different calculation. Success means higher stakes. It means new expectations, more pressure, and more people depending on you. This is especially common for people who are used to managing every detail themselves. Think of a small business owner who built her company from the ground up. Business is booming. The next logical step is to hire more staff and delegate. But she hesitates. The thought of handing over parts of her business is terrifying. If you want something done right, you have to do it yourself, she thinks. This isn't arrogance. No, it's a fear of losing control. Delegating means trusting others, and trusting others means they might make mistakes. For someone whose identity is so tied to the quality of their work, well, this feels like an unacceptable risk. She becomes a bottleneck, truly unable to grow because she just can't let go. She sabotages her own expansion, you see, just to maintain absolute control over her small, manageable kingdom. This fear also extends to the pressure of new expectations. When you succeed, the bar gets raised. Your boss, your clients, your family, they all expect you to stay at this new level or even go higher. This can feel like an immense burden. You might worry you can't sustain it. that the success was a fluke and that you'll eventually disappoint everyone. Your inner guardian sees this and screams, "Danger!" It would rather you stay, almost successful, than risk the overwhelming weight that comes with wearing a heavier crown. The fourth reason, it's one of the most socially complex, the fear of guilt and social backlash. Humans were wired for connection. We need to belong. Success, by its very nature, can create separation. It can make you stand out. And standing out, well, that can feel really dangerous. This is often described with the cultural idea of tall poppy syndrome, where the poppy that grows tallest gets cut down. You might worry that your success will stir up jealousy or resentment from your friends, your peers, or even your family. Maybe you grew up in a place where ambition was seen as arrogant, or where people who got too big for their boots were quickly brought back down to earth. You learned that to fit in, you just had to downplay your achievements. This can lead to a profound sense of guilt. You might feel guilty for surpassing a struggling friend, or for earning more than your parents. This is particularly potent for people who've been socialized to be communal and to not stand out. For them, success can actually feel like a betrayal of their group. Think of a friend group where one person starts to have a lot of career success. Suddenly there's a subtle shift. Jokes about her being too busy for them now start to pop up. She feels a distance growing, so she starts downplaying her wins. She stops talking about her exciting new projects. The social cost of her success starts to feel too high. Her inner guardian, that part of her whose job is to maintain social bonds for survival, flags this as a major threat, and the signal is clear. To succeed is to be alone. To win is to lose your tribe. To avoid this, she starts to self-sabotage. She might pass up a promotion, telling herself it's for work-life balance, when the real fear is drifting from her friends. It's a subconscious choice between personal ambition and social belonging, and the deep need to belong, well, that often wins. The final and often deepest reason is rooted in our childhood. You see, our earliest years are when we form our core beliefs about ourselves and the world, including, of course, what it means to succeed. If your childhood environment punished or even dismissed your achievements, you may have learned that success is dangerous. Consider a child who comes home, just beaming with pride over a drawing they made. If they're met with indifference, "That's nice, now go wash up," they learn their achievements aren't important. Or if they're met with criticism, "Maybe you missed a spot," or "Your brothers are better," they learn their efforts only lead to judgment. And if they're scolded for showing off, well, they learn that success leads to punishment. These experiences create a powerful subconscious link, a link where success equals rejection or even pain. It's like a game of whack-a-mole, really. The moment you pop your head up with an achievement, you get knocked back down. And as an adult, that programming, it's still running inside you. Your inner guardian, it remembers the sting of that hammer, and it thinks, if you don't pop your head up, you can't get hit, can you? This can also stem from growing up in an environment where love was conditional on performance. If you were only praised for perfect grades, you learned that your worth isn't inherent. Success doesn't bring joy. It brings temporary relief, followed by the anxiety of having to perform again to re-earn that love. Finally, if you grew up in an unstable environment, being visible could have been dangerous. Staying quiet and unseen was a survival strategy. As an adult, success means becoming visible, and this can trigger those old survival instincts. You may not consciously know why you're anxious, but your nervous system is screaming that visibility is a threat. Self-sabotage in this context is a trauma response. It's a deeply ingrained mechanism to keep you safe, by keeping you small. We've just unpacked some heavy and maybe even uncomfortably familiar territory. If any of this is ringing a bell, and you're starting to see your own patterns here, I want you to know that this awareness is the first and most powerful step toward change. Now, if you're finding this helpful and want to continue the journey, please take a quick moment to subscribe. It lets me know this content is valuable, and it ensures you won't miss the next part, where we shift from understanding the problem to building the solution. You know, for years I was stuck in a loop. I'd work incredibly hard on a project, right up to the brink of success. And then, like clockwork, I'd somehow find a way to derail it. I'd miss a deadline, get lost in pointless details, or just suddenly lose all motivation. I told myself I was just lazy. But the truth was, I was terrified of what would happen if I actually succeeded. You see, my inner guardian, conditioned by a childhood where being too much was always met with criticism, was utterly convinced that real success would only lead to judgment. The turning point wasn't trying harder. It was turning inward and having a conversation with that fear. It was understanding that my self-sabotage wasn't a character flaw. It was a misguided protection strategy. You can't get a scared kid to calm down by yelling at them, and I couldn't exactly berate myself into being brave, could I? I had to learn to reassure that fearful part of myself. Overcoming the fear of success isn't a battle, you know, it's a process of healing. It's about teaching your inner guardian that you're not that vulnerable kid anymore. So here's a 5-step framework you can use as a starting point. You can't change what you don't acknowledge. First, stop labeling your behavior as laziness or procrastination. Call it what it is: fear. Just that act of naming it is powerful. It separates the problem from your identity. You are not a procrastinator. You're a person experiencing a fear that leads to procrastination. Next, get specific. Grab some paper and let's do a fear inventory. At the top, write down a goal you've been putting off. Then finish this sentence: I want to achieve this, but I'm afraid that. Don't censor yourself. For instance, you might be afraid you'll have to work 80-hour weeks forever to keep it up. Or you're afraid your friends will think you're arrogant. Maybe you're afraid you'll be exposed as a fraud who has no idea what they're doing. And sometimes, you might even be afraid once you get this, you'll still feel empty. Bringing these subconscious fears into the daylight makes them much less scary, you know? It also gives you a concrete list of the beliefs you need to address. You can even give your inner guardian a non-threatening name, like Bob or the Protector. Personifying it helps you relate to it as a well-meaning part of you that just needs to be retrained. With your list of fears, it's time to become a compassionate detective. Your goal is to challenge these beliefs using a technique called cognitive reframing. For each fear, ask yourself a few questions. First, is this fear 100% true? Is it an absolute certainty your friends will resent you? Or is it just a possibility? Is it a fact that you're a fraud? Or is it simply a feeling? Remember, our feelings are not facts. Second, what's a more realistic or compassionate way to look at this? This is where you actively reframe it. For example, instead of thinking, if I succeed, everyone will expect me to be perfect all the time, try reframing it to, success means I've done well. There will be future expectations, yes, but I can manage them. People understand that everyone, including me, is human. Or, instead of, I only got this opportunity because of luck, reframe that to, luck might have played a part, sure, but my skills and work ethic put me in a position to get lucky. I earned this. Third, what would you tell a friend who had this exact fear? You see, we're almost always harder on ourselves. By imagining you're advising a friend, you tap into your compassionate voice and see things more clearly. This isn't about blind positivity, no. It's about finding a more balanced and realistic perspective. Perfectionism dies when you take action. The only way to break its hold is to take messy, imperfect action. Shift your focus from outcome to process and from perfection to progress. Break your intimidating goal into the smallest possible steps. If you want to write a book, your first step isn't to write chapter 1. No, it's more like open a document and write one paragraph. Make those steps ridiculously small to bypass your inner guardian's resistance. As you take these steps, accept that your first draft will have issues. And, accept that your first attempt at a new skill will be clumsy. Reframe mistakes not as proof you're inadequate, but as data. As they say, failure is the tuition you pay for success. Most importantly, you absolutely must celebrate your progress. When you complete a small step, acknowledge it. Tell yourself, I did it. I showed up today. This creates a positive feedback loop. You're giving your brain tangible proof that action leads to accomplishment, not catastrophe. You're building a mental library of small wins that you can draw on for confidence later. You don't have to do this alone. In fact, trying to do it in isolation just reinforces the fear. The right people can be a powerful antidote to doubt. First, seek out support. Find people who have achieved what you want to achieve. Talk to them. You'll likely find out they've struggled with imposter syndrome too. This normalizes your experience. A therapist or coach can also be invaluable, providing professional tools to unpack deeper fears. Second, audit your social circle. Who are you sharing your ambitions with? If you're surrounded by people who are cynical or resentful of success, their voices will only amplify your fears. Consciously spend more time with people who champion your growth and celebrate your wins. Now, this doesn't mean cutting off old friends, but it might mean being more selective about who you share your biggest dreams with. Create a board of directors for your life, a small group of trusted allies whose opinions you value. When your self-belief wavers, you can borrow theirs. Just like treating a phobia, you can overcome the fear of success through gradual exposure. If you're afraid of leadership, volunteer to lead a small, low-stakes part of a project. If you're afraid of the spotlight, share a small win with a trusted friend, then maybe a small group. Each time you step just outside your comfort zone and survive, you teach your brain that, hey, you can handle it. This process, known as desensitization, it recalibrates your nervous system. It shows your inner guardian that the dangers it's worried about, they aren't as threatening as it thought. You're expanding your tolerance for the feelings that come with success. Finally, consciously redefine what success means to you. Society sells a narrow definition, doesn't it? More money, more power, more fame. But true success? That's an internal state. Redefine it as a journey of growth, of living by your values, of finding joy in the process, all while taking care of your well-being. When success is defined as a balanced, authentic life, it becomes far less intimidating. It's not a terrifying peak you have to conquer. No, it's a path you walk, one imperfect step at a time. The fear holding you back isn't a sign that you're broken or unworthy. On the contrary, it's often a sign that you're on the verge of a major breakthrough. It's the turbulence you feel just before you break through the clouds. Your self-sabotage is a predictable pattern, born from a desire to keep a past version of you safe from past dangers. By acknowledging the fear, challenging its logic, taking imperfect action, building a support system, and slowly expanding your comfort zone, you can retrain this protective part of yourself. You can teach it that you're safe now, that you're capable, that success doesn't have to mean isolation, but connection, and that you are worthy of every good thing you work for. The goal isn't to eliminate the fear entirely. It's about learning to hear its whispers without believing them. It's about thanking your inner guardian for its concern, and then gently but firmly saying, "Thanks, but I've got it from here." Because you are ready. Now, I want to hear from you. Which of these hidden reasons resonated with you the most? Was it the imposter, the perfectionist, the fear of responsibility, the fear of backlash, or the ghosts of your past? Share your experience in the comments. Reading each other's stories is a powerful reminder that none of us are alone in this.